right, live again. It's time for your favorite show. You can't brew that on television. Now here are your hosts, Brewmeisters Kyle Sweeney, Todd LaPointe, and the Reverend Ryan Bono.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to another exciting episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bono.
I'm Kyle Sweeney, Todd LaPointe.
And we are here, as we are every Monday, to help you bridge the gap between frat boy and beer snob. Kyle, what have we got for everyone tonight?
We got a full show. We're gonna talk about a death in the brewing family.
We're definitely going to say goodbye to a legend tonight.
That's right.
We're going to do it the right way with the beer that he made.
We're gonna drink the beer he made.
We're going to drink the beer that he made.
We're going to talk about some trivia, like we always do.
Yeah,
I mean,
got some trivia from our friends over at the Half-Ass Sportscast.
one
That's
of which is
nice.
live in our studio audience today.
He's going to be here to celebrate in our victory over them.
We're going to talk about last week's show.
Yeah, last week we got kind of silly. We had a good time. We hope you guys did too, but
we really you got something out of it, because we did, but we don't know if we conveyed that to you.
We definitely did. We learned an awful lot last week about ballpark food, and we would like to talk about that really quick.
Yeah. We're going to roll a new segment this week we've been talking about for a while, and we're also going to talk about Bono's trip to see a friend of ours get married.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually got two new segments tonight. One of them is a bar review. I'm going to be reviewing The Porch from Key West, Florida.
Looking forward to that.
And we're going to have our first beer confessional.
Well, before we go any further, let's open some beers.
Let's open some beer.
I have you a sippy cup.
I'm drinking out of the sippy cup. Okay.
Yes, because last week you destroyed one of my favorite mugs.
Okay.
Just during your jocularity after our show.
Yeah.
And, I'm a little disappointed, so now you can drink out of a sippy cup.
I was playing with the dog. You know that.
You don't really have to drink out of the sippy cup.
All right, well, I was going to. If that was my penance, I was going to do it. So while we're pouring some beer, Rich, why don't you...
This one's yours.
Oh, this one's mine. Okay. Why don't you share with us what our friends over at the Half-Ass Sportscast have tonight?
You guys ready for some trivia at the top here?
Yeah, we'll do trivia early.
Alrighty. Well, we've got a trivia question, and as Bono mentioned, it's brought to you by the folks over at the Half-Ass Sportscast, our Wednesday night webcast about all things pro sports, hosted by Ryan Faulkner and Johnny Gibson. And tonight, sirs, Ryan asks, how many beers did Wade Boggs once consume on a cross-country flight?
If we say one, we're technically correct, because if he consumed 7, he at least consumed 1.
Should we go technicality engineer answer on that?
Yeah, I'll throw a real attempt out there. I'm going to say he polished off a 12-pack.
You want to go dozen? I mean, this is Wade Boggs. That guy,
big dude.
He was like a pro soccer player or something, right?
Yeah, back in the day, they were all on coke, so that was going to be affecting the drunkenness. So yeah, I'm gonna go say he polished off a 12-pack.
Yeah, we'll go 12. I'll follow your lead there.
You guys ready for the correct answer?
We are ready for the correct answer.
We just gave it to you.
Just confirmed before the show, 64 beers.
I don't believe that.
All I'm saying is, what airline is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm
saying. They're packing more beer than luggage.
It's not possible
in the sports circle, and many people have questioned it.
Were they like airline-sized bottles of beer? Were they all shots of beer?
I don't think they were the lunch pail-sized packs that you send with your kids to school.
No, they weren't the beers you send your kids to school.
All right.
So, let's just talk about this nice bubbly brew we've got right here.
Talk about this beer, and then let's talk about the guy who kept the style alive and how we did that.
Pierre Celis left us, I believe it was Saturday, late Saturday night, maybe early Sunday morning. It was tough to tell, but probably wasn't. We would have just had to look it up.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had invented this style quite some time ago. It was in the mid-'60s when he came up with his brewery in Belgium and brought back to life a style that at the time was dying or if not dead, which is Belgian wit beer. And these styles nowadays, they're very popular in the States. Blue Moon being probably the most popular. Avery makes a White Rascal. We've got, Pierre Celis actually came back and made Celis White a while back. But essentially, this guy revived a tradition of brewing and making one style of beer great. He made a few others, but this one caught on. And then he had some selling out type issues, but not really for the reasons why you would think. I mean, You know what happened there, Bono, with his, what was it, the 80s that happened, mid-80s? He had a brewery that caught fire.
Yes.
And problem is, being a cheap brewer like we all are, he didn't have a whole lot of insurance. So he let that building burn down without any insurance, and then to build back up, he needed to get deeper pockets, and so pretty much sold out to InBev, which now owns Anheuser-Busch. The America's king of Belgian beers, right?
Yeah,
something like
that. I believe that is their official new slogan. And Pierre Celis started his life actually as a milkman.
A milkman?
Yeah, he worked on his dad's dairy farm, and he would deliver the milk. And when he got married, he was still delivering milk. But just like all good brewers, just like all guys that go on to own breweries, brew some of the world's most amazing beers, he was brewing beer on the side, just like we do and just like a lot of you do at home. He was just doing it as a hobby and enjoying it, and decided to go full-time with it when he was very passionate about the style.
And he had worked as an apprentice or, some sort of
he had.
muckraker, basically, cleaning out the mash tuns at a brewery that was then defunct when he came up with his brewery. So he had a little bit of knowledge, but not a lot. I mean, in the end, he wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a brewer. He just kind of threw something together and heard the murmurings about the crowd that said this city used to have 30 breweries, and now it's got 0. And nobody makes Belgian wit anymore. And he says, I can do that.
And talk about fanatical devotion to a style. I mean, he as a brewer was really dedicated to just the one style, in much the same way that for centuries the Guinness family has been dedicated to one style.
Right.
Even when you have Guinness's other beers, they're all stouts of some sort.
And this is a wit beer, which is Flemish for heavily carbonated and slightly cloudy beer.
I think that's a literal translation.
Right.
Yeah. This is a nice beer though. We talk a lot on the show about Blue Moon.
Yeah,
and
we've talked about it.
And we talk about it as a bridging the gap beer. And
it is very much so.
It really is, and I think that this whole style could be described that way. We throw Blue Moon out there a lot because that is something that you see at a lot of bars that don't necessarily carry craft beer. It's a big starter beer, and it's a great beer.
And Blue Moon was originally brewed at the Colorado, like the small brew pub at the Colorado Rockies Arena, I believe. I don't know if that's true or not.
Sports guy?
Sports guy. I think that's where it was originally brewed, and then it got bought out. Yeah, it is not an arena because
arenas usually
they close those.
Open.
Yeah.
We are getting some tentative approval from our friends at the Half-Ass Sportscast that are here on set with us tonight. So,
and obviously, if he knows how much beer Wade Boggs consumes,
that's right. So he knows everything.
Your sports authority.
Oh, I just can't imagine an airline staff letting any one person consume 64 beer.
It's Wade Boggs.
Man, I've seen people kicked
baseball.
off. I've seen like business suit. I'm a lawyer. Guys get drug off a plane for barely being drunk.
If it was a Boston-based flight crew,
plane?
They'd have let him do whatever he wanted.
No, he's saying it was a team plane.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a team plane? Oh, okay. Yeah, he definitely did whatever he wanted then.
Flying from New York to L.A.
Well, I mean, team planes, charter planes, that's a different story. I mean, the things that Tiger Woods got away with on planes is pretty ludicrous. So, anyway, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. We've recovered our focus now. So, bottom line, the beer world is definitely saying goodbye to a legend these last few days.
Is like I said, Pierre Celis also sold his other company, Celis White, which was down in Austin.
Yeah,
I think it
purchased by the Michigan Brewing Company. I believe
it was purchased. I think it moved and became the Michigan Brewing Company or something. But it's a subsidiary of Miller, I believe now. But anyway, they're still producing Celis White, and still a pretty good beer. I think they're using his recipe much more closely than what happened with Hoegaarden, which is no longer really his true recipe. It's more watered down, more mass market. But shoot, they produce like 1 million barrels a year.
Something like that. Yeah,
I mean that's crazy.
They make a lot of beer.
So,
and one of the big reasons,
a good beer though.
One of the big reasons he selected Austin, and we have talked a little bit on the show about water, and we'll probably get into it on a full episode at some point. But the water there in Austin with the limestone caverns was very similar to the water profile he was getting in Belgium, where it was also very heavy mineral deposits.
Right, and he generally wanted to brew with water that had bat poop in it. So
that was,
I think that's why he
also really what he was looking for. And he had a lot of that in Belgium.
I don't know if anybody's ever been to Austin in our crowd, but yeah, if you watched,
Probably not.
At dusk, all the bats come out, along with all the Austin people, which it's an equally eerie situation for everybody.
They all live under that bridge.
All from under the same bridge. That's correct.
This is a really complex beer. You look at it, and it's golden and kind of hazy,
Yep.
and you really don't give it much of a second thought. You just to look at it, it doesn't look like much.
It's
But
big in carbon, carbon dioxide. The CO2 just like bubbles.
It's very
the whole time.
effervescent. We almost could have poured this into champagne flutes, I think.
Yeah, you
and
could have.
That would have gone
it would
really
have
well.
gone. We used wheat beer glasses, which work quite well for Belgian wheat
Yeah.
beers.
And this has a nice, crisp, refreshing taste. There's a lot of wheat in there. There's some definite spicy phenolics there in the nose.
You get the Belgian yeast where you get a little phenolic,
Yeah.
a little pepper type flavor from it, and
Orange-
that's good.
Orange peel, is that orange peel?
Could be, yeah, could be a little coriander.
There's something citrusy in there.
Yeah, it's probably orange zest, and there's probably some coriander in there because you also get that kind of flowery smell to it. It's great. It tastes great.
And this is why we like to call these beers bridging gap beers, because this is something that any frat boy can enjoy. It's a good, light, refreshing beer, but even as people that are really into beer, we can taste it and we can break down the different levels and the different layers that are coming out of there.
Yeah, it's great. It's perfect for both, and it's sweet, and so it's a good beer for women who may not have drank beers before. You got a lot of those people in the Bridging the Gap world that people's wives get tired of them going to the bar all the time. We're going to the fancy beer bar where you don't want to go, honey, and then they start gradually weaning themselves into drinking good beers. This is a way to start that.
So, speaking of Bridging the Gap,
what did we talk about last week?
I think it's finally time to move on. As excited as we are about the life of Pierre Celis, I think it's definitely time to move on. Last week, we bridged the gap with some ballpark beer.
That was fun.
And some ballpark food. I suggested the segment, but I didn't think it was going to be nearly as much fun as it was. We really got carried away with it, and it was really neat to see how well these ballpark beers paired with the ballpark foods. The ballpark food, I feel, was dragging flavors out of the beer that I never knew were there.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about beers that we don't drink all that often. So you're talking about,
Keystone, Budweiser.
What was the one that we were really shocked about?
Keystone Ice. Man, that came from, pardon the pun, way out of left field.
I grabbed a few discount 24-ounce cans, but it was definitely a home run of a segment.
Yeah, it really was. Well, it was maybe a triple.
Oh,
maybe a triple. But we really enjoyed it. Let's talk really quick. I think that the Keystone Ice paired. I think it was the biggest all-around beer. Like the Shiner, I felt went really well with the Cracker Jacks.
Yeah,
and the Budweiser, I think, really went well with the hot dogs. But the Keystone went with everything.
I like Coors,
and
too.
you liked the Coors, yeah.
The Coors with a lot of the stuff, just the Coors Original. I'm not talking about Coors Light. It was, but I think it had a lot of the same things when we figured out that Keystone Ice was a higher alcohol beer. So it actually had, although light in body, it was still, still big beer. It had some backbone to it. And it was
5.9?
Yeah, something like that.
Which for that style of beer is monumental.
Yeah, normally you don't get to that alcohol content until you get up to the higher gravity or the premium lagers.
Steel Reserve, isn't it?
Yeah.
Zimas and Smirnoff Ices.
That's right.
That's
Sweet.
That is correct.
Drop some candy.
Zimas and Smirnoff Ices.
Odd you should mention that. That is Johnny Gibson of the Half-Ass Sportscast's favorite malt beverage.
Really?
I
Zima.
confirm.
Yeah. He just got it confirmed in the audience here that is exactly right.
We might have to go to confessional for that one.
Yeah, so we'll probably do that one of these weeks.
Yeah, we might.
But
so that was a really neat segment.
It was great. Basically where it came down to, if you're going to be eating really heavy beers, eating really heavy or spicy foods, go for the
heavy spicy beers.
Go for the darkest, most expensive import, quote unquote, like they'll call Shiner an import. Go for something like that. It'll be well. But if you're going to be drinking, something lighter, and you can do that with nachos, you can do that with peanuts, you can do that with a hot dog with nothing on it. You start loading it with ketchup and mustard. You may want to go bigger.
Different story, yeah. Yeah, in fact, that was the difference. I remember that
Yeah.
we had some discussion on one of the beers, how it went with the hot dogs.
Yep, the hot dogs.
And it turned out that I had ketchup and mustard on mine, and you didn't.
Yeah.
And the difference was amazing because I ended up trying one without.
Yeah, the hot dog with
yeah.
the mustard on it was better with the bigger beers.
It definitely
the
makes
darker beers.
more of a difference than either of us suspected that it would. So
Yeah.
that was a really neat segment. We had a good time with it. We hope that
Fun.
you did.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really neat to go through that kind of experience and just try different foods with different beers. In fact, Richard and I, after we did some barbecuing the other day, we broke out the
Miller High Life, yeah.
Light.
Miller High Life Light?
Yeah,
Wow.
we went big time.
That's
And it was pretty fun. Played us some bocce ball in the backyard. Realized it's very difficult with no light to see the actual pomino for bocce ball.
yeah.
We
I
later
imagine.
replaced it with a softball, which made it much easier to see. It's probably not as true to the Italian sport as they would like it to be, but this is Texas, and we were playing in my backyard. So
We play
it's
softball,
fun.
bocce ball, and we drink softball beers.
That's right.
That's correct.
So
So I think it's time for our first bar review.
let's do it, man.
And
I'll drink beer. You
So-
tell me about it.
tonight's bar review was actually inspired. We had talked a long time ago about working bar reviews into the show, and
Yeah.
we just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And tonight's bar review was really inspired by just a thoroughly amazing bar that I was fortunate enough to drink at for the last few days. I was in Key West, Florida for a wedding. Speaking of which, big congratulations to Patrick Hazard and Jocelyn West, who got married Saturday night in Key West.
Go Faslin.
So fascinating. Yeah, big round of applause for them. While we were in Key West, the Piaz and I were fortunate enough to be directed the direction.
That is how you got directed.
Well, that is how we got directed. We were fortunate enough to be pointed in the the porch, which is a bar. It's right on Duval Street,
Which
and
is very common when he's in a building to get directed to the porch. But
it's
usually
not,
for different
it
reasons.
is not the first time that has happened. Not the first time at all.
There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out.
So we were fortunate enough to be pointed in the direction of the porch.
Okay.
And it's right in the tourist district, right on Duval Street. It's an amazing bar.
Really neat building. I remember looking at some of those pictures you took, man.
The building itself is really neat. The building is also haunted. I took a ghost story tour. In fact, you can see the ghost tour advertised right there on the sign.
Huh.
I took a ghost story tour of Key West, and that was one of our first stops, was that particular building.
Really?
So yeah, the building itself is haunted. Neat building, just neat atmosphere. The guys who work there really know their beer, and we know this because they had bottles. I didn't tell you this, Kyle. They had bottles that they had consumed there at the bar, like just the bartenders and the owner. They had a bottle of Utopias.
Oh.
They had
$200 beer, by the way.
not 2, but 3 bottles of 1989 Thomas Hardys
Ooh.
that apparently somebody just like lost in their house and gave to them about a year or two ago.
Well, at that point, Thomas Hardy and those small bottles, they don't have a cork and they don't have any of the wax on the outside of it. You don't know what you're going to get.
They said they were all amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So the guys that work there really know their beer. They have, from what we can tell, most of their taps are rotating. They get in just whatever the distributor happens to have, because it's Key West. It's hard to get the same beers all the time if you're looking for good beers. So they get in whatever the distributor happens to bring them, it looks like. And whenever they run out of a keg, they just take it back, bring out whatever they happen to have next, unscrew the old tap, screw in the new tap, and go. And I'm certain that they have regular taps on there, but I remember I drank there 3 consecutive days, and each day they had different stuff on tap, and they only have like 10 taps.
Well, that's great. I mean, and I saw a picture of those 10 taps that you had there too.
Some nice looking taps.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. They had one of the same styles that we have for our dog leg tap. I saw that was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, they did.
But yeah, I mean that's great. I love the fact that you don't have to have the same rotation at your bar. You take what you get. You give different beers to different people at different times, and that's great. As long as you keep some sort of a semblance of a style, you want maybe 2 or 3 seasonal type taps, and you always want some staples on there.
Absolutely. And the really cool thing was
working on my Untapped right now.
They have a number of beers there that you have to ask for by name. They don't just set them out, because they only want to give them to people that will truly appreciate them. For instance, the Rogue Old Crustacean, 2008, which I was fortunate enough to have on Saturday.
Wow!
They offered it to me on Friday, and I declined it because I wanted to be stone cold sober when I drank that. I wanted to be able to thoroughly enjoy it. So, really neat bar, really good guys that really know their beer. I strongly, strongly recommend the Porch. And I know that we've got a few viewers in Florida. I know we've got viewers that go to Florida. Please stop by the Porch when you're in Key West because it is an amazing bar. It truly is.
So, being Cuban like you are, how long of
I know this is
trash
going
raft,
bad because you actually said Cuban.
right, how long of a trash raft ride is it from mainland to Key West?
7.5 hours or so. It just
Okay.
depends on prevailing winds, really.
Well, if neat
And
tides
it's quicker to get there than to get back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. Well, that was fun.
I enjoyed it.
Let's see. What time are we running?
We do have confirmation that the Blue Moon was created at the Sandlot Brewery.
Sandlot Brewery in Coors Field.
1995.
All
right, so
Blue Moon created in the
there you
Sandlot
go.
Brewery in Coors Field.
At least once an hour, I'm right about something. So, that just kept my track record
Yeah,
going.
that clock just never works. So you can fix it on that 1 hour.
So once a day, right? Clock's always right. 2 times a day or once if you're military.
Right, at least twice a day.
So let's. You want to roll table scraps?
Yeah,
first?
I was going to say,
Actually,
Alex?
Reverend, we've got a very important request from one of our viewers.
all right, let's hear it.
They desperately need absolution, and we were wondering if there was anybody there who might be qualified to hear their confession.
People think it's a joke, but I actually am an ordained minister, so let's go ahead and see what I can do for these people.
I checked into my beer.
And now we invite you to absolve yourself of the sins of your beer drinking with beer confessions for the Reverend Ryan Bono. Reverend Bono, our viewer this week, he confesses that he is a fan of Milwaukee's Best. And not just the label art, but he actually drinks Milwaukee's Best.
Oh, my son. Oh, this is bad news. Kyle and I join you every Monday, and we try to help you bridge the gap between frat boy and beer snob, but you'd rather bridge the gap between frat boy and homeless wino. Milwaukee's Best, also known as the Beast, is very heavy in adjuncts. So for your penance, you must go to a beer that is adjunct-free and proclaims it very proudly and will blow the old Milwaukee out of your system. Anything from Stone will do. I personally recommend the Sublimely Self-Righteous, because that's how I am. Now, once you've blasted the Milwaukee's Best out of your system, it's time to get on the road to recovery. I strongly suggest tonight's beer, Hoegaarden, or even Blue Moon. Both of those will do, as well as Ska True Blonde. Thank you for writing in, and please get some help.
Thank you, Reverend. If you or someone you care about has a beer confession for the Reverend Ryan Bono, please write us webcast@doglegbrewery.com or visit our Facebook page.
That was very interesting.
That really was interesting. That was a pretty egregious sin as well.
And there are more sins than just the sin of the frat boy. There
Yeah.
are also the sin of the beer snob.
Yeah, there's plenty of sins of the beer snob, and I assume that we're going to get one or two of those.
Right, I walked into a bar and all they had was Bud and Bud Light, and I chose not to order a beer.
Yep.
That is a sin.
I actually guzzled, and I mean guzzled, Yingling over the last few days. Not what you would call a craft brew, not what you would call beer snobbing, but it's an enjoyable, refreshing beer that just happened to be what the place I was at had on tap.
Well,
So
I like Yingling, oldest brewery in the United
oldest
States.
brewery in the United States, that's correct.
And one of the few, if I remember correct from one of your trivia questions to me, was one of the few breweries that survived Prohibition by switching their malt from barley to wheat or something like that.
That's right.
Cereal grains that were being produced and used for different reasons.
And one of 2 breweries who delivered kegs of beer to the White House on the day Prohibition was signed out.
That's right. That's pretty cool.
So let's get some table scraps up here.
All right. I'll go get them.
For those of you who don't remember, Table Scraps is a segment we do every week since the Bluebonnet Brew-Off, where we taste some of the beers that didn't quite make it to the second round of Bluebonnet. And what they did was they gave these beers out in cases, and they weren't necessarily bad, but a lot of them aren't necessarily good either. Some of them are very good beers that just were miscategorized. So
some of them just fell across hard flights.
Some of them just did fall across hard flights. It is possible to have a high 30s beer not go.
And we had one of those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We actually submitted one of those.
We submitted 2 beers to that competition. Had one that finished 37, something like that, 36.
Heck, in the smoke beer,
didn't even make it.
In the smoke beer, we had some low 40s beers not make it.
We didn't push enough beers in that one. It was brutal.
So
this style should be similar to what we're drinking right now.
That's what we're hoping. That's
we know only by the 27 on the cap, which, according to Bluebonnet, is going to be some sort of a Belgian or French ale.
Or French ale, which still is
looks
casting
dark.
a fairly wide net.
This looks dark, which means it's probably... Man, that better be good. You just took like 8 ounces to my 2. Jerk.
You can.
No, I'm okay.
You can switch.
Oh, that's nice. It smells good.
Yeah, it's got a nice big phenolic smell coming out of it.
You know, I mean, it's supposed to smell
a
little
little
peppery.
That's what it's supposed to smell like. They went a little
Under
too
attenuated. It's got some sugar in it.
Yeah, it's still a little bit chewy.
Sometimes they don't get the yeast to eat up all the sugars, and that eats me up. So I like to let everybody know when I taste it.
He definitely likes to throw that at people.
But it's good. It's not a bad beer. I could see why it didn't win, why it didn't go. It's almost like it almost tastes like the spices that they actually introduced spices.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to suggest, and also there's a lot of alcohol bite in there that I don't think is supposed to be there.
It can be in a big saison or a big bière de garde.
Oh, okay.
It shouldn't be like a bite, and I don't get it.
Yeah,
too much
it's not biting. I guess I was just focusing too heavily on the white.
wit.
Yeah, on the wit beer. Because compared to the wit beer, this is an absolute bite.
Yeah, and it's not a bad beer. You could drink that. I feel like I would go into a diabetic sugar coma.
Yeah, I think so.
Simple sugars
Definitely.
that were not fermented out of there. But
so, let's talk a little bit about next week.
Next week,
because next week we're going to be tasting the beer that we were supposed to be tasting this week, and that is the Sam Adams Noble Pils.
Man, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I am too. It's a delicious beer, and it's one that all of you can get at home. So we're strongly recommending.
It's probably running out because it's their seasonal.
Yeah, it probably is running out. So hurry up tonight and go get you some Sam Adams Noble Pils so you can taste it with us next Monday.
Yeah, and that's a beer that we've talked about before. It's kind of fun because across the beer community, a lot of people are really upset about it. It's like, oh man, I hate that Noble Pils, and I've had other people that are like, oh, I love that Noble Pils. I personally am part of the love the Noble Pils camp. I think they did a great job with that.
I like it, and it's very typical of Sam Adams, I think, to just blow the style guidelines aside and just make a beer that they think tastes good, and that's exactly what they've done.
So I'll just throw something out there. We got a little bit of time left before we're done, but
what we got?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the beer tasting I had the other day.
Oh yeah, that's
went out Sunday, which was yesterday, and tasted some beers with past raw brewer and future raw brewer and current raw. I guess the best way to put it would be maybe an idea man.
Okay.
But yeah, drink it with these 3 guys, very heavily affiliated with the club and with what we do. Had some great beers. Brought stuff, and in particular, the premise of this was we were going to try a horizontal and a vertical with chalk and oliva or ovala. I can't remember which one it is.
We've talked a lot recently about horizontal and vertical, and I think maybe next episode we should go into that a little bit more in depth for the people that don't really catch that term right off the bat.
Yeah, but basically we're drinking beers of similar style that aren't by the same brewery, and then we're drinking beers that are by the same brewery that aren't brewed in the same year. So they're different bottles. They only brew it once a year, so those kind of bottles, they tend to last. Right. It was very interesting. And I mean, we had a good time trying them out, and it was amazing which ones people liked more and which ones people didn't. But, check out my Untapped with some of the stuff we had on Sunday. It was just out of this world. And it seemed to get better as the day went on. It was weird, like 10th or 12th bottle, and all of a sudden everything tasted really, really good. So
That's crazy how that happens.
The brewery, which is a brewery out in California, their Saison was... Whew,
And do you remember the name of the brewery in case anybody out there's in California?
Yeah, it's called The Brewery.
Oh. That's an interesting name.
Bruery.
Oh, okay, the brewery. The brewery, gotcha.
And I can't remember if you were drinking when we had the brewery's beer, or whatever that one is called, the Belgian wheat style, kind of like East German style that they naturally ferment. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, but
and who makes this?
No, it was the brewery that makes it.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of people that make that style. It's the lactic wheat style where they don't really actually boil it. They just...
Oh, Berliner Weiss?
Yeah, Berliner Weiss.
Okay.
There we go.
Love that style of beer,
Yeah.
by the way. It's a
So,
really neat style of beer.
You can't always find it readily
it's not-
available because it's just hard to make.
Yeah, well, it's hard to make, and it's not really a big crowd pleaser here in the States. I mean, most people don't like their beer sour, so you just don't see very much of it. But
It's a neat style.
yeah,
though.
it's a really neat style. We had a couple of the Blue Bonnet that I was thoroughly pleased with, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that. I would have been like really kicking myself in the face and looking at BJCP. What is the name of that? But I figured it out.
Beer.
I figured it out.
So, what did we learn tonight?
Well, we learned that people should not send in their confessions, otherwise you will talk to them.
Yeah, that is kind of disappointing,
Right.
actually. Yeah.
We also learned that Wade Boggs is a total
It's an
drunk.
absolute beast.
Right.
Speaking of the beast.
I'd like to know what type of beer he consumed 64 of. That's something that maybe
Milwaukee's
we'll
best.
find out.
Question for the Half-Ass Sportscast.
Miller High Life Light.
Miller High Life Light. I could consume 64 Miller High Life Lights.
Yeah.
I would not be in. I would be in semi-rare form, maybe.
No, I would go with rare. Yeah,
Rare.
Definitely rare.
Okay.
I went to Key West expecting to be drinking Budweiser for 3 days, and I was ready for it and I was okay with it. But Key West is a phenomenal bar called The Porch.
And we learned that Pierre Celis kicked the bucket. Here's to you, bud, from us. That you can't brew that on television. Cheers, man. Enjoy the afterlife.
Now let's talk really briefly about the live event because it is starting to take shape. May 23rd at the Flying Saucer here in downtown Fort Worth. You can't brew that at the Saucer. We're gonna have live guests, live interviews. Honky the iPhone guy is gonna be there. Jen the Beer Goddess is gonna be there.
We're gonna have
the two of us are gonna be there.
live producer.
Live producer.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Hopefully, the folks from Half-Ass Sportscast will join us. And
It sounds like they are, and for those of you who are in the area and just planning on watching it at home, you could do that. We're not really focusing on the home audience, though, that night. We're focusing on the people that come to the Flying Saucer. So
Yeah, the broadcast may or may not work depending on
it may or may not work,
far
and we're
network
going to
is.
do everything we can to make it work. But if it doesn't, we're just going to
we're
We'll also be
relying
drinking a lot, so
we're relying on somebody else's Wi-Fi. It'll be taped. It'll eventually be podcast.
Yeah, it'll
We'll
eventually
figure
be
something out.
podcasted. You're going to see it no matter what. But if you want to see it that night, you should definitely come down.
That's kind of part of the fun of our show is is being able to join in on the chat room and let Richard talk to you and let Richard. Usually what happens is it's hard for us to monitor the chat, or else our ADD kicks in and we can't really pay attention to what we're going to say. So Richard monitors it. So if you have anything you want to interject when we're talking, just throw that in there. And,
Definitely.
We'll definitely add it to our show because that's what's fun is it's a show that we're standing here and talking, but it's all about what we're talking about. We're a big group.
So please be sure to come out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to enjoy it. I think you are too. And until then, we'd like you to keep in mind that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Agitation, frustration, memorization of the things I'm gonna do to you. This magical and powerful addiction to the pain affliction on your porcelain skin.